Hello viewers, welcome to Divine Consulting. My name is Lucky Igwe. Before I proceed with today's topic, please subscribe to my channel so that you'll be the first to be notified when a new video is released. Today, we'll be looking at Introduction to Information Security. We're going to kick off with the definition of terms, and we're going to start up with the information security. Information security is the protection of information and information system from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, modification, and destruction in order to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These three words, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, are known as the CIA triad. They are also known as the security objectives. We will discuss more on the security objectives as we progress. The next is information system. Information system is a discrete set of information that is organized for the collection, processing, maintenance, use, sharing, dissemination, or disposition of information. We're going to look at the need for information security. Organizations depend on information technology and the information system that are developed from that technology to successfully carry out their mission and business function. Cyber attacks on information security is often very aggressive, disciplined, well organized, well funded, and they are in growing number of documented cases, very sophisticated. Given the significance and growing danger of these threats, it is therefore imperative for leaders at all levels of organization to understand their responsibility to ensure adequate information security for managing the information system related security risk. Still on definition of terms, we'll be looking at the word asset. When you hear the word asset, what comes to your mind? Asset is something of value, property, people, information, system. Asset is what we are trying to protect. Now we'll be looking at the word threat. Threat is anything that can exploit a vulnerability, either intentionally or accidentally, to cause a damage or destroy an asset. Threat is what we are trying to protect against. Now we'll be looking at the word vulnerability. Vulnerability is a weakness or gap in our security program that can be exploited by a threat to gain an unauthorized access to an asset. Vulnerability is a weakness or a gap in our protection efforts. Now I'll be relating it to you better. Let's say you live in a townhome or you live in a single family home. There are some of these townhomes or single family homes that has an entry, a back door that leads to their basement. Now, let's say for instance, the door is broken and it's only known to you that the door is broken. And you have something of value in your bedroom. Let's use an example of a gold. You have a gold, that you have locked up in your bedroom. Now, the door of your home that is broken, that you are yet to fix, is your vulnerability. The gold is your asset. The passerby or the package stealers or your neighbors, I'm not saying that they are your threat, but for the sake of this training, we are going to use that scenario. They are your threat. Now, the door of your home that is broken is your vulnerability. The threat agent or the threat could in one day be passing around or working, at the back of your home, and they may just, want to try the door out, to check maybe the door is locked, anything can happen. So they check it out and they realize that the door is not locked. They can either do two things. They can exploit that vulnerability and come into your home and start searching around the house to see something of value that they could lay their hands on, and hopefully they lay their hand on your gold, which is your assets. So the door is your vulnerability. The passerby or the package stealer or your neighbors, they are your threats, or they could even be your family and friends. They are your threats. So the door is your vulnerability, the gold in your bedroom is your assets, and those passerby are your threats. Same thing in an organization. If they have a vulnerability identified on their network, or a vulnerability that is not quickly identified and remediated in a timely manner, an attacker could exploit that vulnerability and gain access to their network and steal vital information like their customer data or vital information, top secret classified information. So now, in essence, like I said, your vulnerability is the door that is not locked, which is when we relate it to an organization, vulnerabilities that are not identified in a timely manner, that are not remediated in a timely manner, could easily be exploited by an hacker or by an attacker. Our definition of terms continues. We'll be looking at the word likelihood. Likelihood is the probability that a potential vulnerability may be exploited within the construct of the associated threat environment. We'll be looking at the word impact. Impact is the magnitude of harm or damage that can be expected to result from the consequences of unauthorized disclosure, modification, and loss of system availability. Now we're talking about risk. Risk is the potential for loss, damage, and destruction of an asset as a result of a threat agent exercising or exploiting a vulnerability. Risk can be calculated by multiplying likelihood multiplied by impact. Now I'm going to relate this back to the townhome and the single family home that I used for illustration earlier. Now, what should be the likelihood that a threat agent will know, or a passerby will know, that the back door leading to the basement is broken? What is the probability that somebody will know that the door leading to the basement is not locked? What is the probability that a threat agent will gain access or we exploit our vulnerability on our network and gain access to our network and steal customers' data or classified information? Now, what will be the aftermath impact should the threat agent succeed in gaining access and stealing that gold that is in the bedroom? Same thing in an organization. What should be the impact on the business mission should an hacker or an attacker penetrate our network, exercising the vulnerability and stealing vital information, customers' information, classified information? What will be the impact? That brings us to risk, because risk is likelihood multiplied by impact. Impact, as stated earlier, is the potential for loss or damage or destruction of an asset as a result of a threat agent exploiting a vulnerability. So risk is calculated again by multiplying likelihood multiplied by impact. What is the likelihood that a threat agent will exercise a vulnerability? What will be the impact should the threat agent succeed? There are 4 ways in which you can treat a risk. A risk can be accepted. In certain cases, it is cheaper to leave an asset unprotected rather than make the effort and spend the money to protect the asset. Before you accept a risk, you have to consider if the cost of insuring the asset is much more than the value of the asset. I'm going to use an example of a car. You bought a car for $500 and you call the insurance company that you want to, insure your car. And they told you that your monthly premium is going to be $250 and you bought the car for $500. You rather accept the risk and leave the car uninsured in case the car gets stolen. Well, it's just $500. You can easily buy another car than you paying the monthly premium of $250, because by the time you pay $250 twice, you've already covered the amount that you used in buying the car. And if you continue to pay the premium consistently like that, you will overpay. You will pay way much more than the cost that you used to buy the car. So that means you are accepting the risk of the car being stolen, rather as against you providing an insurance coverage on your car. Risk can be mitigated. Risk mitigation is a process of lowering a risk to an acceptable level. Now, mitigating a risk in an organization is a process of you implementing the appropriate security controls so that to reduce the level or the rate at which an attacker can easily gain access to your organization network and steal valuable data. Mitigating a risk is also relating it to you is also a process of you putting a front door, a doorbell camera to scare away all these people that comes to steal, package. But that does not mean that they will not still try, but it scares them away. It reduces, the amount of time or the number of times they will make attempts to steal your package. Same thing in an organization. When proper security controls are implemented, it reduces the number of times an attacker will make an attempt to steal organization data or exercise vulnerabilities. A risk can be transferred. Transferring a risk is the insurance model. And I'm going to use the example of the car. Now, you bought a car for $80,000. Now, the insurance company tells you that you're going to pay $300 to insure the car monthly. That will be your monthly premium. You will gladly pay the $300, knowing fully well that should the car get stolen, the insurance company will replace the car for you or pay you almost the equivalent amount value of the car, the equivalent value of the car. The insurance model is also the same process in the organization, whereby most organizations are now transferring their data to the cloud service, to the cloud environment. So they are transferring their data, they are transferring the risk of insuring or protecting their data to the cloud service provider. So that should anything happens to their data, the cloud service provider will be held liable. A risk can be avoided. A thorough risk analysis should be completed before taking on a new project. Let's take, for instance, you want to establish your business in a very busy neighborhood where the traffic is high and they have a high crime rates, a history of high crime rates. But your business will thrive in that neighborhood. But one thing that happens is that because your business is in a high crime rate neighborhood, there's every possibility that the gangs may come into your store and point gun at you to collect your earnings almost every other day. So you rather move the business to a more quiet neighborhood that the crime rate is on the low side and it has fewer traffic, but every earnings that you make, you will be able to take it to the bank at the end of the day. Same thing in an organization. You don't want to put your business in a location that is known to have frequent natural disaster. You want to put your business in a region where it has a low history of natural disaster or no natural disaster at all. Same thing is applicable to your data center. You don't want to place your data center in a region that is known to have frequent natural disaster like flood, hurricane, earthquake. So you want to avoid that risk. We'll be looking at identification, authentication, authorization, auditing, and accountability. Identification is the process by which a subject professes an identity and accountability is initiated. Now, I'll be using a scenario. Let's say you come to my home and you press the doorbell of my home and I ask, who is at the door? And you tell me my name is James Maxwell. That's the process of you identifying yourself. Which leads us to authentication. Authentication is the process of verifying that the claimed identity is valid. I could tell you, oh, please, can you step to the window side and show me your ID card so that I may look at your name and the picture on your ID. By so doing, you are authenticating. There are some schools, some organizations that you will get to, they will ask you to show them your ID card via the doorbell camera. Same way, your bank account. You have a Capital One account. You have a Bank of America account, Navy Federal account, SunTrust account. When you put in your username, you're identifying yourself. When you put in your password, you're authenticating. When you put in your username, you are identifying yourself. When you put in your password, you are authenticating. Now, when you put in your password and you put in your username, it takes us to authorization. Authorization is a process whereby once a subject is authenticated, access must be authorized. Once you show me your ID card, I must, or if I want you to come into my home, I will have to open the door and allow you to come into my home. Now, when you come into my home, that does not give you access to start walking around the house or give you access to go upstairs into the bedroom. Same thing with your bank account. Once you put in your username, you put in your password, access must be authorized. You must be given, you must be allowed to view your account balance. Now, by you viewing your account balance does not give you the right to manipulate or modify or alter your account balance from $1 to $1 million. So the level of access that you are being given is restricted. While you are authenticated on a system, the level of access you are given is limited. It's called the least privileged access. It is based on your job function. So when you come into my home, you stand at the door. So I will be the one to walk you to the living room and I will ask you to have your seat. That is authorization. So the fact that you are authorized, you have been given access, you're authenticated on the system, does not mean you can do multiple things. Some are given read-only access. Some are given the writing access. Some are given, executive files or program access. So when you view your account balance, you can only view it. You cannot change anything. So now that takes us to auditing. Auditing is a pragmatic way of monitoring a subject's action while they are authenticated on a system. So they could generate an audit log which will tell them when you logged in, when you logged out, and the activities that took place while you authenticated on the system. Same thing in my home. When I take you to the living room, I could tell you that, oh, I'm coming, let me quickly get something upstairs. And unknowing to you, I may have a hidden camera somewhere watching all your activities. So maybe while I'm gone, you stood up, you started walking around, looking at the pictures in the house, or you tried to start dipping your hand in so many areas, seeing if you could get something of value. Not knowing that you are being what? Monitored. All your activities are being recorded. Same thing on the system. While you're authenticated on the system, all your activities are being monitored, all your activities are being recorded, and they can generate what is called an audit log that will show them everything that you did while you're authenticated on the system. Which takes us to accountability. Accountability is the process of holding somebody responsible, accountable for their actions. So now when they generate that audit log, they'll be able to see all the activities that you did. Let's say something that happened after you logged out and you've gone for the day. They now realize that something happened. They will generate the audit log. It will show them everyone that was authenticated on the system, that logged onto the system, and it will show everything that you did. So if you were the one that tried to do something bad on the system, you will be held accountable for your action. While I'm upstairs, you were dipping your hand in many areas and you didn't know that I was recording. My hidden camera was recording your activities. And at the end of the day, I played back the camera footage and I saw everything that you did. That will help me to hold you accountable should anything goes or gets missing in the house. And it shows that you were the one that took it, based on the camera recording. So that is accountability, holding somebody accountable for their actions. Now, there are various methods of authentication. The first method is one-factor authentication, which is your username and your password. One factor, username and your password. Don't see username and password as two-factor. They are just one factor. Username and password is one-factor authentication. The next is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is your username and your token or your badge. Your username, your token, or your badge. So when you enter your username, then you need to also put in your PIF card or use your token to complete the two-factor authentication. Your username and your token or your badge. And I'm going to show us something right here. Hold on a minute. Okay, so this is a computer, right? So there's a PIF card somewhere. I don't know if you can see this. There's a PIF card somewhere right here. I don't know if you all can see this. So there's a PIF card right here. This is the PIF card. So when I log into my computer, I put in my username and my PIN or my password. I have to put in this PIF card, which is the badge, or the badge, which is the PIF card, to complete the two-factor authentication. So I have to put in this PIF card to complete the two-factor authentication. Or I use a token. So that is two-factor authentication. Now, three-factor authentication is username and password, token or badge, and biometric. Biometric could be your eyes, your iris scan, your thumb print, your palm print, your fingerprint. So when you put in your username, you use your PIV, and you also have to, use your thumbprint, your palm print to complete the three-factor authentication method. Now, there are authentication types. The first three that I listed are authentication methods. Now, the authentication types. The authentication types are something you know. Something you know. How do you remember this? Something that's in your memory. It's only you that know it. No one else knows it. If you don't share it with someone, they won't know. Something you know is your password or your PIN that you use to access your ATM, your PIN, or your password that you use to log into your bank account. It's only you that knows your password or your PIN. Now, something you have is something that is physical, something that you can hold, something that is physical, like your token, like your PIF card, your smart card is something that you have. Now, who you are, anytime you remember who you are, something that is on your body, biometrics, your fingerprint, your voice recognition, your iris scan is who you are. So do not mix the three authentication types with the three authentication methods. Three authentication method is one-factor authentication, your username and your password. Two-factor authentication, your username and password and your token or your PIF card or your badge. Three-factor authentication is your username and password, your token or your badge, and your biometric. Now, authentication types are something that you know, your password or your PIN, something that you have, your token, your badge, something that is physical. Then who you are is biometrics, which is your fingerprint, your iris, or your voice recognition. We'll be looking at the basic requirements to ensure information security. I'll be looking at the security objectives. The goal of information security is to ensure the protection of the CIA triad, which is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, when we talk about confidentiality, confidentiality seeks to prevent the disclosure of information to an unauthorized individuals or system. The disclosure of information to an unauthorized individual. Now, when there's a loss of confidentiality, it means that there's an unauthorized disclosure of information. Because confidentiality seeks to prevent the disclosure of information to an unauthorized individual. So should an unauthorized individual gain access to an information, there is a loss of confidentiality. Now, integrity. Integrity seeks to prevent the unauthorized modification of information. When there's a loss of integrity, that means there's an unauthorized modification, alteration of information. Now, we'll be looking at availability. Availability ensures timely and uninterrupted access to the use of information or objects. Timely and uninterrupted access to the use of information or objects. Now, when there's a loss of availability, it means there's a disruption of access to the use of information or an information system. I repeat again, when there's a loss of availability, that means there's a disruption of access to the use of information and information system. There was a time when a whole hospital was held ransom. They could not gain access to their computers, to carry out patient care. They were held ransom. That is a loss of availability. That is a clear loss of availability. which has impacted the information security of the facility. Now, I'll be looking at potential impact. There are three levels of impact should there be a breach of security. When it's a breach of security, there is a loss of CIA. And CIA is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, what are these three potential impacts? They are the low, moderate, and high. Now, before you can say there's a low impact or an organization will suffer a low impact as a result of a security breach, it means that an event has a limited adverse effect on an organizational operation, assets, or individuals. A limited adverse effect, a minor harm to the organization, a minor harm to an individual. I'm going to relate it back to the issue of the condo and the townhouse. When they steal your gold and you say, oh, it's going to have a limited, a minor impact on me, or it's going to have a low impact on me, so that means if they steal that gold, it's going to have a minor impact on you. Maybe the gold costs like $10 million and you have maybe $900 million in your account, or the gold costs $1 million and you have $100 million in your account to replace the gold. That is a minor impact because you can easily replace it because you still have $100 million to replace the gold that costs $1 million. Now, if you say that an event or a security breach on an organization network, we have a moderate impact on the business mission of the organization. It means the event has a serious adverse effect, on organizational operation, assets, or individuals. A significant effect. But in this situation, there will be no loss of life. Relating it back to the townhouse or the condo and the gold. If they steal the gold and the cost of you replacing that gold is $1 million, and you have, let's say you have $10 million, or you have $5 million in your account. If you take out 1 million out of 5 million, you are going to feel the impact. So that's a significant impact. But that won't take your life because you have money to replace it. Now, if you say that the impact to an organization, should there be a security breach, it is high. That means the event has a severe, catastrophic, adverse effect on organizational operation, assets, individuals, or individuals. It has a severe, catastrophic, adverse effect on organizational operation, assets, or individuals. A major impact, which could lead to a life-threatening injuries or loss of life. Now, relating it back to the gold, if that gold is stolen and the gold is a community response, something that was kept in your possession by the community, and your life savings, no matter how long you work, you can never raise $1 million. That could lead to an immediate heart attack, and that could lead to loss of life. So the three potential impact is low, moderate, and high. Low, moderate, and high. So before you say that, oh, it's going to have a low impact on me, you have to understand that it's going to have a minor harm to you, a limited adverse effect on you. Before you say it's going to have a moderate impact on me, that means it's going to have a serious adverse effect on the organization or the individual in question. And before you say it's going to have a high impact on me, or on the organization, that means there's going to be a severe, a catastrophic adverse effect on the organizational operation, assets, or individuals, major impact, which could lead to a loss of life or life-threatening injuries. Now we'll be looking at data classification. Data classification is the process of assigning a level of sensitivity to a data as it is being created, enhanced, stored, or transmitted. The sensitivity level determines the extent to which the data needs to be controlled or secured. Now, there are various levels of data classification on the government or military and on the commercial side or public sector. Now, the highest level of data classification on the government or military side is the top secret information. Top secret is the highest level of data classification, which is followed by the secret information. Secret is used for data of restrictive nature, which is then followed by confidential. Confidential is used for data of sensitive, proprietary, or highly valuable in nature, or highly valuable data. Now, which is followed by the lowest level, which is sensitive but unclassified. Sensitive but unclassified data is used for internal office use only. Sensitive but unclassified data is used to protect information that could violate the privacy rights of individuals. Now, on the commercial side, the highest data classification on the commercial or private sector classification level, the highest level of classification is commercial. Commercial is the highest level of classification. It is used for data that is extremely sensitive and internal use only. Now, the next classification level is private. Private is used for data that is of private or personal in nature, and it is intended for internal use only. Now, the next level of classification is sensitive. Sensitive data is used for data that is more classified than that of the public data or public area. Now, the lowest level is the public data. Public data is the lowest level of classification amongst all the data classification on the commercial side. Now, we're going to look at security controls. Security controls are safeguards or countermeasures to minimize security risk. The next, we're going to look at the classification of controls by time of occurrence relative to security incidents. Now, the first on the list is the preventive control. Preventive control is a control that happens before the event occurs. Before the event occurs. They are controls that are intended to prevent an event from occurring by installing an IPS, intrusion detection system. By installing a doorbell camera in front of your home to prevent the people that comes to steal packages, from your home. Preventive control. So installing a front door cameras in front of your home. These are preventive controls. Now, we're going to look at the next one, which is detective control. You installing an IDS, intrusion detection system, on your network. They are controls that are in place to capture an event during the event. During an event, they are controls that capture an event as it is occurring. They are intended to identify and characterize an event in progress. installing an IDS. These are detective control. You can also install an alarm in your home, like having Brinks monitoring, ADT, alarm system, so that when somebody breaks into your home, the alarm triggers off and it quickly alerts the police, and the police comes and hopefully they are able to catch the intruder. So those are detective control. They are controls that detect an event during and while an event is occurring, is in progress. Incidents in progress. These are detective control. Now we're going to look at corrective control. Corrective controls are intended to limit the extent to which any damage caused by an event. They are intended to limit the extent of damage caused by an event. Limit the extent of damage caused by an event. So they are controls that takes place after the event has occurred. Let's say people that normally comes to steal packages, they come to steal your package, and you now realize that, oh, had it been I had a front door camera installed in front of my home, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Had it been I have an intrusion prevention system, this wouldn't have happened. So now you are correcting that error by you going back to install the front door camera, by you installing the IPS. Now, we're going to look at deterrent control. Deterrent controls are controls that discourage security violation. For instance, by you putting a security camera or by you putting a guard in front of your home, a gateman, or a security guard, it will deter criminals from coming closer to your property. Deterrent control, it discourages people from coming close to your property. Now, we have compensating controls. Compensating controls are controls that are intended to reduce the risk of an existing or potential control weakness, or in place of a missing control. They are put in place of a missing control, or they are added as an extra layer of security on a control that was previously implemented or installed on a network or on a system. Added layer of security, or they are used in place of a missing control that was not previously implemented on the system. So these are compensating controls. Controls that compensate, controls that are added as extra layer of security on an existing control, or controls that are used in place of a missing security control. So what does that mean? Just say you have a front door camera in front of your home, and somehow someone still managed to go through the side of the house and you're able to break the back door of your home. Now what you want to do, you want to add an extra layer of what? Cameras, security around your home. So you want to put camera, if possible, on the right, on the left, on the back, so that you can capture everything that's happening around your property. So those are compensating security controls. We'll be talking about the evolution of RMF. The evolution of RMF, Risk Management Framework. Now, the FISMA Act of 2002, which is the Federal Information System Management Act, requires federal agencies to develop, implement, and document an agency-wide program to provide information security for the information and the information system that supports the operation and assets of the agency. Now, while the FISMA Act of 2002 focuses on compliance, FISMA Act of 2014 focuses on control effectiveness. Now, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, was tasked to conduct an annual review of the agency's information security program to determine if they are, or to ensure if they are in compliance with the FISMA Act of 2002. Now, NIST. NIST is the National Institute of Standard and Technology. NIST is responsible for developing information security standards and guidelines, including minimum security requirements for federal information system. Now I'm going to explain these three. FISMA is, let's say FISMA is on my left hand side, right? FISMA is the regulatory body that is telling the federal government agencies to secure their information system. Now OMB goes to these government agencies annually to conduct an independent investigation or annual review of their information security program to determine if they are in compliance with the FISMA Act of 2002. Now, these federal government agencies use NIST publication to secure their information systems. So while FISMA is the regulatory body, NIST is the guide that they use to secure their information system, and OMB ensures that the federal government agencies are in compliance with the FISMA Act. We're going to take a quick glance at the NIST 837 Rev 2, NIST Risk Management Framework. Now we're going to look at the NIST RMF steps. Now the first step under the NIST Risk Management Framework is the prepare step. Now the objective of the prepare step is to prepare the organization to manage its security and privacy risk using the risk management framework. The next step is the categorize. Now, at the categorize step, you categorize the system, you identify the security objectives, and you determine the high water mark. Now, you first identify the security objectives. Now, you now determine the security impact to each security objectives based on the information types. You identify the information types. Now, you now determine the impact to each of the security objectives based on the information types. Now, after identifying the impact to each of the security objectives, that will now help you to determine the high water mark for each of the security objectives. Now, when you now determine the high water mark to each of the security objectives, that will now help you to determine the overall high water mark for the system. And the system categorization is done using FIPS 199 and NIST 860. Now that takes us to the next step, which is the select. You select the applicable security control, the applicable baseline security control based on the security categorization at the categorization step. And you do this using NIST 853. So let's say the system was categorized as a high impact system. Then you go to NIST 853 to select the applicable security control to secure the information system. The next step is the implement. At the implement step, you work closely with technical team to document the implementation statements. Remember, at the categorize step, once you categorize, you document your categorization in the system security plan. Once you select, you document the controls that you selected in the system security plan. Now, at the implement step, when you request for the control implementation statement, you document it in the system security plan. That takes us to the assessment step. At the assessment step, the security control assessor conducts an independent control assessment on the control that is selected, on the controls that have been implemented, to determine if the controls are properly implemented, if the controls are functioning as intended, and if the controls are producing the desired outcome. Now the security control assessor develops a security document called the STNE, or the security control assessment document, which it uses to conduct the control assessment. Afterwards, it now developed the security assessment report. The security assessment report shows the security posture of a system. Now, the assessor also goes ahead to prepare the plan of action and milestone, which is the CA5 control. Now, what's the assessment now? Now, when the assessor now prepares the plan of action and milestone, you put the three documents together: the SAR report, the poem, and the system security plan that was developed by the ISSO and that has been reviewed by the system owner and sub-management level, top management level officials within the organization. Now, at this point comes the authorization. You put the three packets together and you present it to the AO to make an ATO determination. So at this point, the AO reviews it, reviews the security documents, and it makes an ATO determination based on the system residual risk. And this is done using the 737. The assessment is done using the 753A. That's for the assessment. Now comes the continuous monitoring. Once the AO now approves an authorization to operate, then comes the continuous monitoring. The continuous monitoring phase is when you conduct your security document review, you conduct your vulnerability scan to identify any identified vulnerability, then you also track your poems to remediation. Then the security control assessor comes back to reassess the controls that previously failed, that are now remediated, to determine the control effectiveness. Now, the security control assessor can also add those controls that have been remediated to the new control set for the next security control assessment cycle. So those controls that previously failed, that are now remediated, can also be added to the new list of controls that will be assessed, during the next security control assessment cycle. Now we're going to look at the system development life cycle. The system development life cycle, known as the SDLC, is a conceptual model used in project management that describes the stages involved in information system development, from the initial visibility study through the maintenance of the complete application. Now, there are 5 phases involved in the system development life cycle. The first phase is the initiation phase. The initiation phase is the need and purpose, the business case. At this phase, this is where the stakeholders, the business managers, they all come together to have a discussion on why do we need to develop this application? What type of data will be processed or transmitted via this application? Then the next phase is the development and acquisition phase. The development and acquisition phase talks about the design, the purchase, and the development. At this phase, this is where the application is being designed. This is where the necessary tools, the necessary equipment that will enable them to develop and design the application takes place. Now comes the implementation phase. The implementation phase, what activities takes place at the implementation phase? We have the testing, then they will accept the test results, and the application will be installed. Now, there are 3 stages, when it comes to the testing. They have the functional test, the structural test, and the security testing. The functional testing tests the functionality of the system. The structural testing tests the durability. How will the application be able to withstand? Let's say they are developing the application for maybe 10,000 users. They want to test if we have about 9,000 or even 10,000 users on this application, will it break down? They want to do the structural testing. Now comes the security testing. The security testing, they want to check the security features. They want to make sure that the application is properly secured from hackers. They want to make sure that their customer data will be secured. Every configuration settings, they want to make sure that the baseline configuration setting is properly implemented. Is there any open ports that needs to be closed? Is the firewall properly configured? They want to check all these components. They want to conduct a security testing on the application. Now, when all this test is conducted, the result of the test will be shared with the stakeholders or with a authorizing official, who will then make a decision whether to accept the results of the test or to deny the results of the test. If the result of the test is accepted, then they will move into deploying the application on the network. Then comes the operation and maintenance phase. At the operation and maintenance phase, they operate, they modify, and they maintain the application. Now, what do they do at this phase? They apply any necessary patch to the application. They conduct vulnerability scan on the application to identify any vulnerabilities in a timely manner. Anything, whatever activities that they need to put in place to keep the application running is done at this step, to maintain the application, to keep the application running. Now, the disposal or the disposition phase, it talks about system or parts termination. This talks about system decommissioning. This talks about this comes into play when the system is no longer needed. So the system will be decommissioned from the network. But there's a process in place to decommission or to terminate a system or to dispose of a system. The stakeholders will have to be notified way in advance. The users will have to be notified way in advance that the system will be decommissioned maybe in the next 6 months, maybe in the next 1 year. And they have to also update whatever registry that they have, for the system. So there are various activities that goes into or that takes place during the disposal or the decommissioning of a system. We'll be looking at the SDLC and the risk relationships. Now the diagrams right here shows us the risk assessment to the left, the SDLC in the middle, and the RMF to the right. Now, under the risk assessment has 9 steps, which is the characterization, the threats, the vulnerabilities, control analysis, likelihood determination, impact analysis, risk determination, recommended controls, and documentation. Now, I'll briefly explain each of these steps. At the characterization phase, you characterize the system. You determine the system characteristics. Then you identify who are the potential threats to the system. You conduct your vulnerability scan to identify the vulnerabilities. Then you conduct your control analysis. Then you determine the probability or the possibility or the probability of a threat agent exercising a vulnerability, exercising the vulnerability on the network or on the system. Now you move down to impact analysis. You determine what will be the impact to the business mission should a threat agent succeed in exploiting the vulnerability. Then you determine your risk. Remember that risk determination or risk is calculated by multiplying likelihood by impact. Now, after determining your risk, then you provide your control recommendation. What are the controls that will help to provide security to the information system? Then you document your result. To the middle is the SDLC, System Development Life Cycle. Remember, I stated that at the initiation phase, this is the phase where the business managers, the stakeholders, determine what is the purpose of the application, what type of data, what type of information will be processed on the application. Then moves to the development and acquisition phase. This is the phase where the application is being designed and whatever parts or things that needs to be purchased to develop the application is being put in place. Then move to the implement phase where they conduct testing and the result of the test is reviewed and accepted and the application is deployed. Now, there are various types of testing that they conduct: structural testing, functional testing, and security testing. Now, the operation and maintenance phase, this is the phase where you apply the patches to ensure that the system keeps running smoothly. You you conduct vulnerability scan to identify your vulnerabilities in a timely manner, and you remediate them in a timely manner. Then you move to the disposal phase where the system is decommissioned. Now, on the RMF step, you categorize your system, you select the applicable security control, you implement the security control, you assess the security control, the result of the assessment is presented to the AO, as part of the authorization package. The AO makes a determination to accept the result or to deny an authorization to operate. Now moves down to the continuous monitoring step. Now, looking at the SDLC and mapping the SDLC to the risk assessment, you will see that the arrows point to each step of the SDLC, but the arrows did not point to each step of the risk assessment, meaning that at each step of the SDLC, you conduct a risk assessment. On the side of the risk management framework, you will see that at the categorize and select step, it maps to the initiation phase, because as at the time when they are determining what will be the information types that will be processed through the system, you are categorizing and you're selecting the applicable security control. At the development and acquisition phase, the controls are implemented. At the implementation phase, the controls are being assessed, and the authorizing official makes a determination to accept the result or to deny it, or the stakeholders. Now, the operation and maintenance phase and also the disposal phase maps to the continuous monitoring phase of the NIST risk management framework. I hope you find this video helpful. Be sure to like my video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.